This PSA was brought to you by the PeterG Show.
You may have second thoughts after the show.
Don't drink the Foster. We're really talented. We should get Oscars.
Just pick out a car, for Christ's sake.
No, my name is Peter. I want. Here's good.
Yeah.
Madam Perry.
I need to get back in the genie bottle.
Louis from Pennsylvania, you're on. He likes it. It's showtime.
PeterG Show, PeterG Show. Divorced dad, single dad. Divorced dad, single dad. PeterG Show.
That's right, it's showtime. Wednesday, every Wednesday like clockwork, God willing. Life of PeterG, the PeterG Show. Give everybody a couple minutes to catch up, catch your breath. When I tell you it's going to be a great show tonight, I mean it's going to be a great show tonight. But first, how the hell is everybody? Spring. Yesterday, first day of spring. I'm digging it already. Are you digging it? I knew that you could. I like spring. Leads into summer. I like those daylight hours. I'm out walking later and doing things. Come in later and stay up later, sleep later, all the above. Hope everybody's doing well. We have, I've been waiting for this. We got a really great show tonight. And I said that a minute ago, but I can't help it. I could pinch myself because it's been a while. I've been working on this one for a while, and you know, it's in the times we're living in, people. And you know, for some, it might make your head explode, but that's the way it is. I'm here to help. You're welcome. Tonight, Tim Cramer, founder of Mosaic Advertising, conservative show host of the Cramersez podcast. So buckle up, because we're going to talk stuff that a lot of people are going to be really happy to hear, and a lot of people are going to just want to scream, call me an asshole and stuff. But I'm just bringing it to your attention because sometimes you need to hear some things. You got to break some eggs to make an omelet, and we're going to break some eggs tonight, coming up in a few minutes. While I'm at it, real quick, as always, mark this on your calendar. Next week, Wednesday, March 27th, last Wednesday of the month, open mic night. Normally I take the show by myself, do current events and everything, but it's been a weird start for the new year, the beginning of this month, and I took it all by myself. So I'm going to bring in special guest, retired Airborne Army paratrooper, retired LA police officer, retired federal agent, Mr. Mike Weiss. It's going to be on this show, joining me with some commentary about current events, as if I'm not going to talk enough about them tonight. Tonight's going to just grab yourself a glass of wine. You're going to need it. Relax. Take your shoes off. But he's going to be, Mike Weiss is going to be with me next week, March 27th, right here. Open mic night for Mike Weiss. Weiss. All right, so here's what's going on. I'm going to bring Tim on in just a couple of minutes. But first, as always, I have to, because I love it, want to hear from my good friends over at Clean Star Products with their money-saving fuel additive DX1 driver for your car. So I'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Tyrone Thompson of CleanStarProducts.com. This is DX1 Driver in the news, and here's what our friends have to say.
So I'm here to recap on the DX1 I've used. I put it in the oil and I put it in the gas. While I'm using it just for about 3 tanks. Cleaned everything out. I got every ounce of power back in my truck.
When Jared's truck was new, it had a lot of power. Then over time, it began to slow down. He got it all back with our DX1 Driver program.
Something you got to see for yourself. It's a great product. It's affordable. And it blows all the other additives and esters out of the water.
DX1 Driver is the finest oil in the world from a California environmental company. It goes into the fuel system and the oil. It's the only green grade product qualified for the carbon credits program, giving you better fuel mileage, lower emissions, and increased horsepower. So join the fuel savings revolution today. Go to cleanstarproducts.com/shop.
That's right, folks, cleanstarproducts.com. All I can tell you is they actually have a product that works. I'm living proof. I've just recently put it into a high mileage pickup truck that I own. 200,000+ miles on my truck. I love it. I'll never get rid of it because it's better than any new truck you can buy. And I noticed within the second tank full the difference of barely having to touch the gas because it's a pig. It's heavy. You got to put your foot in it. And even my daughter drove it and she told me the same thing. It works. Put one of these little bitty bottles into the oil, last the whole oil change, and then every time you fuel up your tank, you put one of these bottles into your tank, and it cleans out everything. It takes care of it. It just brings back the horsepower, it flushes everything out, and just lets it run as good as it can. Take care of your body, and your body will take care of you. Listen, if you got questions, go to www.cleanstarproducts, their website. There's a phone number there. You can call them personally. He will talk to you, answer all your questions. I know, it's a lot. You're thinking, oh, yeah, sure. He'll talk to you and answer your questions. And tell him you mention it, that you saw it on the PeterG show. Should you decide to order, you will get 5 bottles for the price of 4. That's right. You heard it here first, folks. Mention the PeterG show. You will get 5 bottles for the price of 4. And, every little bit helps. Just mention it. Let them know I'm doing something. Remember, they know what I do and they still sponsor me. So God bless them. All right. Lastly, I love you guys that you watch. Please share, subscribe, like, follow. I need it. They're throttling me down on certain venues, certain platforms. They are making it hard for me to be present. They just screw with me. And for those of you who don't have time to watch but want to watch, don't forget, put an earbud in your ear. Google PeterG Show Podcast. You can take the audio version on the road with you. Listen to it while you're in your car, while you're at work. Let's face it, work is boring. It's the next best thing to be in there. So I appreciate you and I love you for it. And, I know that we have a bunch of diehard fans, and thank you. All right. So here's what's happening. I'm so looking forward to this. Here's what's happening. Tim Cramer's sitting in the wings, anxiously waiting, salivating to come on and throw out some of his knowledge questions I'm gonna ask. But first, I'm gonna give you a little intro just to get a feel for him, and just a little something, something on how he kind of works, the common sensory of it, sensibility. All right, so here, check this out.
Why do you think the rhinos, the Democrats, and the deep state fear a second Trump administration so much? Well, here's why.
First, he promises that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history.
Super.
He will also ask for the death sentence for anyone convicted of human trafficking.
Well, it had to happen sometime.
He will close the Department of Education and return all education standards to the states to decide.
Common sense.
He will put prayer back into school, and he will criminalize any race-based advantage programs.
Sounds good.
He will end the Affordable Care Act.
Yep, I can do that too.
He will ban gender-affirming care for adults and children, and he will ban any federal dollars from going towards gender-affirming care.
I'm good with that.
Which means anyone with government-provided health care will no longer be able to access gender-affirming care except for Viagra and Cialis. Those will still be available.
Yep, I'm good with that too.
He will propose a constitutional amendment that gives a term limit to Congress.
Can't wait.
He will deploy the Department of Justice to investigate the Biden crime family and any of his adversaries or political rivals.
About time.
He will immediately pardon all of the January 6thers, and he will create a task force to investigate anyone who arrested, charged, or imprisoned a January 6er.
Outstanding.
He will increase the penalties for underage criminal offenders.
Fantastic.
Strengthen immunity for police officers, and deploy the National Guard to patrol woke cities.
Super.
On day one, he will reassess our participation in NATO and says that every European country needs to pay the United States for protection.
As they should.
He will also restore the wonderful travel ban for Muslims coming to America.
Well, why not?
He will build freedom cities. This is 10 new cities built on federal land. He will award them to areas with the best development proposals, and he will prioritize moving young families to these freedom cities.
Sounds interesting, but I'm going to need more information on this one.
He will kill all e-vehicles and e-vehicle legislation.
Finally.
He will remove all of the limits on American natural gas exports and drill baby drill for oil domestically.
It'd be dumb not to.
He will impose a tariff of up to 60% on Chinese imports.
Cool.
He will extend the 2017 tax cuts and drop the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%.
To the moon, baby!
He will push Congress to pass legislation that would give every American the right to concealed carry anywhere at any time.
We already have that right, but okay.
And he will revoke any gun restrictions or legislation that seeks to inhibit people's ability to own guns that's been passed in the last several years.
You mean a law that would allow us to freely exercise our constitutional rights? All of them.
He will demand that Europe pay back all the money we gave Ukraine, and then he will use all of that money to recruit for the American military.
Intriguing.
And he will take billions and billions of dollars from private university endowments by taxing, fining, and suing the universities. He specifically names Harvard in this one. And then he will use that money to create the American Academy. It is a free online college that will be free of wokeness that he will force employers to recognize as a bachelor's degree equivalent.
Now, why would you be against a free college education? You're not? Well, that's how it sounds.
So, that's Agenda 47.
So were you paying attention? Did you listen to what she said? What they're most afraid of? It's not war. It's not pestilence. It's not another pandemic. No, what they're most concerned about is you being involved in your children's education at a local level. Being able to exercise your constitutional rights freely. That's what they're most concerned about. That's why we have to come out in force in 2024. Too big to win. Let's go, Brandon.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Cramersez podcast, conservative show host, Tim Cramer.
Thank you for having me.
Oh no! Believe me when I tell you, tonight is definitely my pleasure. I've been, I needed somebody to come in and kind of get the
juices flowing.
Yeah. I'm trying to say it in certain ways, without kicking everybody off right off the bat. But sometimes, like I said, you just have to do what you have to do because fair is fair. So. Hey, why don't you do me a quick favor and introduce yourself, give everybody a brief synopsis of who you are and what you do and why you're doing it, and then I'm going to start throwing some stuff at you.
Well, I think that I'm the perfect person at the perfect point in history for what I've been doing. I've been having a lot of fun. Basically, I was the class clown. And class clowns generally do pretty good in entertainment. And so after I left high school, I went to college to be a DJ, learned you don't have to be in college to be a DJ. And so went from one radio station to another. And eventually, for those of you who know of Bob and Tom, the Bob and Tom Morning Show, I was their first producer back in 85, 86, that era, and kind of grew from there. The majority of my career has been working in advertising, marketing, and radio and TV, and either being a personality or being the guy behind the scenes that produces the content that everybody else sees. And when COVID hit, we had a lot of time on our hands. And so I used those resources and those capabilities and those skills to start spreading information about what was really happening and the information that we were learning from around the planet. And it took off. And so I decided to have some fun with it. And this is where we are today. In that time, since starting, and I worked in politics prior to COVID, but I wasn't really involved. My agency handled Republican candidates across the country. In particular, we handled the caucus of Indiana. And that, I'm trying to think the best way to put it, that period where I got an inside look. There was a 10-year period that I worked with the Republican caucus of Indiana and got an inside look at how the sausage is made. And at the end of it, I was really sickened. And then when I saw what they did in COVID, where these men and women who I'd shot their commercials, we'd produced all this content for them, the number one thing that they said, Peter, is that when it comes time, I'll stand and fight for you. And what we learned in 2020 is they wouldn't. They were liars. And so they had to be called out for who they were. And by doing that, I lost a substantial amount of money by cutting ties with the Indiana Republican Party. because they refused to stand for the people during COVID, and I called them out for it. Cost me a substantial amount of money. And it just showcased that I was on the right side of history, because the Republican Party in the state of Indiana, like the Democrat Party that we've seen, we talk about it all the time, how bad the Democrats are, where our Republican brothers and sisters do the exact same thing. They use the exact same strategies, the exact same tactics. And what some people say is that Republicans and Democrats, are different sides of the same coin. I used to fight that. Republicans and Democrats are the exact same thing in their parties.
True.
They protect the party over the person. They're more concerned about the party doing what the party wants to do than your individual rights or your constitutional rights. They don't care. And so that's been really my push over the last 4 years, is to get that information out, is to showcase what's happening around the country, but be able to do, I think Dave Chappelle put it best. He said that, Donald Trump came out from a party and told everybody what was going on inside the party and then went back in. And that's kind of what I've done with my experience of working in politics, both in the Indiana state level and on the national level. It's disgusting, and we've got to get it fixed. And so that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 4 years.
Gotcha. Because this is the problem that I'm having with everything. I want you to know the reason I brought you on this show, because we're so divided, and there's such a Democrat, Republican. I can give a shit, because you're right. They're both the same. But I grew up from the East Coast as a child with most people being brought in as Democrats, and I love the word democracy, and so it sounds good, but things are not what they used to be anymore. They're not. And I'm sick of it. And I can give a shit if it's Democrat or Republican, but the Democrat stuff it's not what it was. It's gone crazy. And I'm not going to stay in just because it's the Democratic Party. And I never was a big Republican fan, but I can't stay there and go, we're just burning everything to the ground. So right now, to me, the Republican Party, even though there's a lot of bad apples in there, still is doing better than the Democrats. But
Peter, that's debatable. And what I mean by that is if you've got a Republican congressman that goes to his constituents and says, "No, I didn't vote for this bill."
Yeah.
For example, there's a congressman in the state of Indiana who voted against the Green New Deal. Went to his constituents and said, "I voted against it. I did what you wanted me to do." Then he goes back and authors a bill to spend that Green New Deal money in Indiana and to bring these Green New Deal projects to the state. That's what I'm tired of. That's what has to stop. And so that's why I run. Right. I'm a conservative. I'm not a Republican. I run underneath the Republican ticket. Right. I'm running for office myself, but I run under the Republican ticket because they align most closely with my my ideals and my ideology and what I believe people should do in government and what our responsibility as citizens are. They align closest to it, but I don't agree with 100% of what they say and do.
Then you hit it on the head, because, I apologize. I didn't know how to put it, but then I am the exact same thing. I can give a shit about the, Republican, this and that, but I have morals about wanting to live in a good country and have a good life. Right. And the thing is that, when Trump came in, whether you love him or hate him, I'm sick of this shit. They're dividing the hell out of it. Trump came in and ran under Republicans, so I guess that's just where it ended up. Right. But I'm tired of the injustice. It's like, if you don't like the man personally, I get it. He is a little rough on the edges, but I've learned that at least you know what you got.
Right.
But they hate him. And today, and it's like, well, you know what I hate? I hate $5 a gallon. I paid $150 to fuel up my tank the other day. Yep. I hate going to Walmart for $28 worth of stuff and paying $62 for it. Right. I hate 7% interest on a mortgage rate that nobody will ever be able to afford. And that's where we're at. And these people are brainwashed. And I just want to give the guy his fair due, because the media is killing this whole deal. And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff like that. So that's why you're here. Because,
well, it goes back. If we look at when you and I first spoke, one of the things, in our conversation and in my content, the one thing that I say all the time, life hasn't changed since the playground. The mean girl, the bully, they just grew up. They didn't change who they are. They're still the mean girl. They're still the bully. And the tactics that were used on the playground of, you can't be a part of the game, or you don't get picked for a team. All of that is the exact same. Nothing has changed at all. And so when you look at it through that lens, it gives you a different perspective on what's going to happen next. Initially, if you remember, when Trump came out, and by the way, this is a tactic not used just against Trump, but it's a tactic being used against all those voices that they don't want to hear. And the tactic is smear, smear, smear. In the old days on the playground, right, they would call the girls sluts. They would call the boys gay. They had other names for that as well. And they would try to smear who you are. Then if that didn't work and people still liked you, then they would turn around and they would start saying, well, you have cooties, or you're dirty, or you don't bathe, or you're poor, or whatever. The same exact tactics are being used today against Trump. It's just on a much larger scale. And so what we have to recognize is that what I like to call lowest common denominator thinking is that what's the core issue that's causing this? And on both sides of the aisle, it's corruption. The reason that these corrupt political beings, they're entities, they are not people anymore. They've abandoned their personhood to become a part of this governmental body. And this governmental body is inhuman. I'll give you an example. When we look at what our government is capable of, Peter, we have to look at the examples of where they've overstepped the boundaries and then corrected it. What I mean by that is that they covered it up. And they used lawfare, they used the media and everything else to do their crimes. What happened in Waco years ago should be very concerning. We are at a point in our history where we're wondering what the government's going to do next. If you want to know what the U.S. government is capable of doing to its own people, look at Waco. Those women and children that were burned alive for guns is how far they'll go. And that's what we have to keep in mind. That's how far they'll go. Well, he should have had those guns illegally. Doesn't matter. Those women and children had nothing to do with it. And if we don't look at it from that position, we'll always assume that they've got our best interest at heart, and they don't. Government is a machine. It's run by people who want power. And the machine is at the end of its lifespan in this country because these people have taken over at every level. It's gotten to the point, I'm running for county council in Boone County, Indiana, for one reason. We have to start stopping this overreach of the federal government and the state government at the county level. That's where we stop it. Men and women who have the courage and the spine and the backbone to say no to spending and to programs and to DEI and ESG and carbon sequestration plants and solar farms and wind farms. These things that are coming into our communities and taking over our communities have to be stopped. And if men and women don't stand up and do it, we're going to suffer the consequences of a worse America for our children and our grandchildren. And I can't allow that to happen. Peter, we just heard Ketanji Jackson Brown from the bench in the Supreme Court say, why are you guys making it so hard for the government to censor you? That's where we are in this country right now. And if we don't wake up, if we don't take notice of what they're doing, we're going to lose this nation. And it's not hyperbole to say. I produced a commercial 10 years ago for a gentleman by the name of Marlon Stutzman. He ran for Congress, and he won, by the way. We're really good at what we do. He won for Congress. And in that commercial, he said, this is in 2010. He says that my role is to stop our march towards socialism. When we made that ad, it was controversial at the time because nobody saw us as a socialist country. Oh my, what 14 years can do to a nation. And that's exactly where we are right now. We are on the brink of socialism. We're already a fascist nation. Right? We've got government intertwined with business. We've got the government at the top levels of tech, manufacturing, everywhere.
But Tim, I don't know what the percentage is. There is a lot of people that are buying into everything that's being fed to them through the media because most people say, why would the news lie to us? They're our news. It's our government. This is not Iran. And they're buying into it at hook, line, and sinker and going against falling for it. I mean, how do you stop that?
Well, the way you stop it is the first way that you stop it is through elections. That's the first way you stop it. Now, Everybody's going to say, but we can't trust our elections. That's because you're not involved. The number one thing that pisses me off is the people that will go out and complain about the system, but not partake in the system. They don't show up to meetings. They don't go to the county council meetings. They don't go to the school board meetings. They expect somebody else to carry the water for them, for their freedom and their liberties. And then when their liberties and freedoms are taken, they're complaining. Did you vote? No, my vote doesn't count. Of course it doesn't count if you don't vote.
Yeah,
now,
there's a lot of that.
That's the first way. That's the way I prefer, is through the electoral process. It's slow. But we're getting to the point in this nation where 80% of the country does not trust the election process. They don't trust the electoral system. And Peter, we can't have a functioning nation if every time someone gets elected, they believe the other side says, well, that was cheated. They cheated. They got in. We've got to have a robust and transparent system that allows the citizens to see what actually happened. And when our elected officials, the county commissioners that handle the electoral process in the counties, all the way up through the state, when they are roadblocks to transparency, they've got to go. And the citizens cannot rely on the system to fix itself. It will not do it. Take your car and park it on the engine's going bad. Take it and park it in the driveway. Do nothing with it and see if the car fixes itself. It will not. Government is the same. There is no incentive for government to change. None.
They're lining their pockets. I mean,
exactly.
It's horrible. All the shit that, my mother used to tell me when I was younger, a kid, that if you're in government, you can't participate in stocks and things like that. You had to, separate yourself. It's the farthest from the truth. That's the way they're getting rich. All this insider trading, and they got to go. They got to go. Here's what I want to do. Go ahead.
I think that's where the nation is. It's interesting that the terms that we're seeing used on Google, social media, and so on, the two biggest terms that are being used consistently across the board by both sides of the aisle are civil war and revolution. Let that sink in. Yeah. In conversations, those are the two most used terms. That's new in the last 3 or 4 years. Now, that's on both sides of the aisle. So the Democrats who are raging and saying, well, those Republicans are all dangerous. Look what they did on January 6th. We saw you burn cities for an entire year. We know what you're capable of. Yeah. We've restrained ourselves. We have not done that. We have not gone to the streets. But I can guarantee you, we have another election like 2020, or the problems they had in Arizona with Katie Hobbs and Carrie Lake. We have those problems where it takes months to get an election counted. Yeah. By the way, when I was a kid, right? I'm 60 years old, so I'm an old guy. As a kid, we knew what the results were that night. Didn't have computers, didn't have poll books, didn't have all this fancy stuff. We knew that night who the winner was.
Nobody
to
went
expect
home.
anything less, Peter, is disingenuous to the system. To say that it takes 3 months to count the vote, ridiculous.
It was weird. It was very weird. I've never seen anything in my life where they went home for the night, and it was very unusual. Very unusual. Look, here's what I want to do. I want to throw something out. This happened over the weekend, and everybody's been all over it, but I feel because of the way things are twisted, I want to talk about this, and we're going to get on to a bunch of other things, but the bloodbath. I mean, I just a perfect example, because today I'm on Facebook a lot. I have a lot of Facebook people. I monitor Facebook, and I'm watching people that I know and love very much pick up what the media put out and twist it. And then they're just feeding off of it. The gas. Yeah. Now I want to play this real quick video. This is a video of how the mainstream so-called fake news, how they're feeding everybody, and then what really happened, because these people that I know and love, I know only saw the headline. Right. I guarantee you'd have to be, otherwise you would not say what you say. So let's check this out real quick, and then we're going to talk about this. So let me see if I get it right. Yeah, there we go.
If I get elected. Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
But we just have to win this election, because he's even predicting a bloodbath. What does that mean? He's going to exact a bloodbath? There's something wrong here. How respectful I am of the American people and their goodness. But how much more do they have to see from him to understand that this isn't what our country is about?
She's a lying liar. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. Now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars.
Well, I'll be damned.
Completely taken out of context, like they do everything.
Yep.
And therefore creating the haters, the ones that don't like him personally because he's a little rough around the edges, or they don't like hearing, we live in different times. I think being eloquent and being reformed, and it's I don't think we're going to get anywhere anymore like that. But
I'm with you. Well, think about this. Again, the tactic is not new. It works.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi called it the smear campaign, the wrap-up smear. She knows how the game works, so they take something out of context, they push it into the market, they play the telephone game with it. People are repeating it. They don't know the true story. They don't know the whole story. But in their mind, Trump said that he's going to create a bloodbath, and that's what they tell everybody. Out of context. I keep saying context matters, but they did it in 2015. The rapist and thieves line. He didn't say that all Mexicans or those coming across the border were rapists and thieves. He said some of them were. He was right. He said that they said that Trump told us to put bleach in our veins during COVID. That's not what he said. There's a product that is a disinfectant that does that for the blood. It's a true product. He talked about light being used in the body to kill the virus. Guess what? That's a true technology that's being used. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a theory. It's a fact. These products are already produced and they work. And so the media turns it around, no different than saying that guy's got cooties. It's no different than the playground if you think about it, right? And now it's bloodbath. And have you seen the videos on social media of all of the Democrats using that term? It's going to be a bloodbath.
Oh, every week there's a different term. I mean, every week there's something new. I've never heard so many new words going, to hurt, to go against throughout these last few years. I mean, it's always, and then one media network picks it up, and everybody, it's the key phrase for the week until it burns out. But
and the other thing is, I don't know if you saw the video here this last week, Peter, of Bill Clinton saying, we've got to come together, folks. We can't keep calling each other names and going after each other. Well, Bill started home. Your wife is the one that called half the nation deplorable. Started home, Bill.
Yeah. Well, see, again, I woke up this morning to see, again, friends of mine that really don't like Trump, and I love these people, and I don't care. I'm not going to let that ruin my friendship. That what they think of me is another, up to them. But this is what I woke up to watching, and this is what they fed off of. Oops, I just did it again. This is what they. Oops, there it is. They saw this.
Yep.
And who's it written by? Yahoo.
Yep.
And that's all they saw, and that was just enough for them to hate the man even more. Now, I don't mind, but fair is fair. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. And
not only did he not say that, but that wasn't even the context of what he was talking about. He was talking about the auto industry. It's imperative that when we say this, we explain exactly what we're saying. And to your friends, I hold my friends accountable. Right? Don't bring this lie to me. Don't tell me this, not knowing all the information, because I will call you out on it.
They just hate him, and
they do.
And they give them, and the media just keeps feeding them more hate by giving them a little snippet of something that makes really no sense. and they just run with it. It's just gaslighting big time. I've never seen this kind of stuff ever.
Well, another example is Hutchinson. Was it Hutchins, the girl that made the claim during the J6 committee hearings that Trump climbed through the limo. I don't know if you know, have you ever seen Trump? Trump is a big guy. He's not climbing through any limos. Yeah. That he shoved his way through the window and got his hands on the steering wheel and was going to drive that car back. The limo driver says here recently, none of that ever happened. It's all made up.
It's impossible in the first place.
Right.
You could barely get an arm through a privacy, especially in that car, to reach midway through the cabin, let alone grab the wheel or something. Again, it's nonsense. I had that I said, I might let that one go. But there's so many. Well,
it's like it. And what we've seen, Peter, over the last, for people who don't know, or don't study up on this or keep up with it, this problem started rearing its head in 2014. And in 2014, Obama, Republicans and Democrats together modernized the Smith-Mundt Act. And the Smith-Mundt Act said clearly, the U.S. government cannot propagandize its own people. It's illegal. Yeah. In 2014, Republicans and Democrats, Obama signed it. They modified that act and now allow the government to lie directly to us. And what have we seen over the last few years? Lie after lie after lie after lie. And not just lies, but lies put through media. And then they get their media parrots, sounding boards, and they put them in the... It's interesting to me that the Democrat Party, when there's a new phrase that comes out, you know exactly what it is within 10, 15 minutes of watching all the news channels. You'll find they've got a phrase. For example, a few months ago, it was Trump's up against the ropes. Trump's on the ropes. Some variation of Trump's on the ropes. He's really got his back against the wall. That came out. Somebody wrote that and disseminated it. And every news outlet, every liberal news outlet was utilizing that phrase and that phraseology on this issue. That's part of Operation Mockingbird. It's not going away. And that is a fact, by the way.
Tim, the fact that they can legitimize lying to us, that's why people won't buy into it. They think it's all true because we've always been lied to, but not to this extent.
Right.
And what does that tell you about our own government wanting to just feed us full of shit constantly? It can't be good.
Right.
This is horrific. And that's why I think people are having such a hard time not accepting the fact that they're being lied to, because they say, why would they lie to us? And they're going about their way in the world, and just every little headline they get, it's got to be the truth. It's on the news.
Right. I think that what we're going to see here is there's going to be a come to Jesus moment, I think, this summer. And I think the American people are going to realize, hopefully they realize, how much they've been lied to. What we're seeing is, let me give you a synopsis of what I think is going to happen and why it's important for people to stop listening to the mainstream media and taking their word for it and not looking at alternative outlets for news and getting their information from all of those. I know that takes time. I'm involved. I'm engaged. So this is what I do all day long. I get it. Most people are not as anal about this as I am. But they cannot sit out there, Peter, and say that it's all rigged. It's all a sham and nothing's ever going to change, and complain about it and then go home and not do anything about it. And just like in the Civil War, just like in the Revolutionary War, there was only 3 to 6% of the population that fought in those wars. There's a reason for that, because what we know from science is that about 80% of people do not have the ability to speak up to power. We saw that happen during the pandemic. 80%. I can't remember the name of the experiment, but it was done back in the 1960s. And what they did was they had one person who was inflicting pain, and they had an imaginary person on the other side of the wall screaming when that pain was imaginarily inflicted. And it was a test. And what the test subjects didn't know is that the people who were flipping a switch and potentially shocking someone on the other side of the wall, they were actually the test subject. It was not the other person on the other side of the wall. So they tricked them into believing that they had to follow the are you familiar with this experiment?
No.
Okay. So basically what they did was there was a big panel with a bunch of switches on it, and each switch gave a different voltage of shock to the other person on the other side of the wall. And that person would be asked a question, and if they got it wrong, then the person, the test subject would zap them. And at the end of the console, it said light, heavy, startling, and then the other one was death. And one of the guys asked, could it really kill somebody if I push that? And the guy goes, yeah. He goes, oh, I don't want to do that. When he goes through the whole process, Peter, at the end, he gives him the deadly shock because he was told to do it. The scientist that was standing there, the doctor that's standing there in his little robe, right, says, no, sir, he got the answer wrong. You know how it works. You've got to give him the shock. And like 68% of I think it was 68% of them, they did it. 68% were willing to kill another human being potentially.
Because they were told to do it.
Because they were told to do it. That's dangerous. So when you understand these numbers, you understand why only 3 to 6%. And I think that the height during World War II was 12%, but there was a draft in place. But you've got 3 to 6% of the people who will stand up to bullies. They'll stand up to Karens. Those are the people that are gathering right now, that are getting to know each other because they're networking, because they see what's on the horizon. They know that what we're experiencing in this country right now is unsustainable. Can't continue doing it. And they're looking at what's the out. And if we continue down this path where we've got Supreme Court justices, the top law in the land, saying that the government should have the inherent right to censor the people without any reason, we're in trouble.
Never did. Maybe because I was younger and not paying as much attention, but I've never really believed in brainwashing. Well, how do you brainwash? Like you're going to change somebody's. So, because I think I'm a different person. Like I don't believe I could be a person that could be hypnotized. I just don't think I have the vulnerability. Maybe I'm wrong. I guess I'll find out maybe if I try, but I don't think so. And brainwash. But this last 4 years from COVID on up, and the masking and the bickering about, you're going to kill me if you don't get, banged. And I don't know what to say. It's like horrific. I'm going, you can't be that stupid. You got all this information around. I get it that people don't have time to be digging and stuff, but to see it in front of you and to still say, yeah, but still.
It's your cognitive dissonance. What it is first of all, they want to say it's not happening. And then when they do realize what's happening, there's a choice that has to be made. James O'Keefe in a speech here recently said, if you're not willing to defend it with your life, meaning your freedoms and your life and everything, if you're not willing to defend your position with your life, then you're bought off. Think about that.
Well,
Our founding fathers, when they signed that document, Peter, this is important for people to understand. When our founding fathers signed that document, the Declaration of Independence, that was a death warrant. They had no First Amendment rights. They had no Second Amendment rights. They had no Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. These were men who gave their lives to defend what they thought was right. And today, we have those protections. We have the First Amendment. We have the Second Amendment. We have the protections of the Fourth and Fifth.
Because of them.
Because of them, because of the sacrifice they made. And we're saying today that we can't do it because we might lose our job, or even worse, I might get canceled on social media. I can't speak out against it because I would lose my monetization. Well, Peter, I decided none of that was worth it. If my children can't grow up and my grandchildren can't grow up in the same America that I did, can't have the same opportunities and have to keep their mouths shut, and my granddaughters have to compete against men in sports, no, that's not America that I want them to grow up in. I've got to do something right now today to stop what's going to happen in the future, because we can see what happens. We said years ago, when the gay marriage bill went through, we said this will open up a Pandora's box of all the freaks in the world that want to now get justification for their lifestyle. And what have we seen happen?
How's that working for them? I mean, good luck to them. Yeah, if they want to get married, let them get married and be miserable like the rest of us.
But that's the whole thing. No, marriage is between a man and a woman, right? Yeah. If you want to get a civil union, because the marriage is through the church, right? Now, states now saying, no, if a couple wants to get married in your church, you've got to marry them. Well, the church is saying, no, I'm not going to marry a same-sex couple. I don't agree with that. Our teachings say we don't believe in that. It shouldn't happen. And the state is coming in, that's capital S, by the way, coming in and mandating that these churches do this. This is the problem, because what it does is they're wrecking our culture and our society. If you want to get married and you want to have legal protections, if you're a gay man or a gay woman and you've got a person that you care for and you want in your life, there are methodologies to do that do not include marriage. We're talking about a civil union to where you're recognized by the state. When your partner is dying, you can be there, you can sign for them. It gives you all the same rights that a marriage gives you, but it's not a marriage. It's not marriage.
I thought there's always been separation between church and state.
Well, you would think so. But now the FBI is going into the Catholic Church and, going after them because they're radicals. They're dangerous. They're potential terrorists. Peter, we are at a crossroads in our nation. And unless people wake the fuck up, it is not going to get any better. More importantly, not just waking up, but waking up and doing something actionable. Right? I'm not calling for violence. That's the first thing they say. I made a comment on social media a few months ago where I said, if this happens, if the government does this, this was what the people will do. They will revolt. They will go to the streets. They will arm up and they will pull these men and women out of office and they'll start over again. We have the authority in the Constitution to do it. We don't have to ask permission. It's there. Not only is it there, but it says it's our responsibility, our duty to overthrow tyrannical, oppressive governments. It's the people that have to do that. I go back again. If we expect Congress to fix the problems that Congress created, it's no different than expecting your car to fix itself. That's what we've got to get in to understand. That's why tonight, before I came here, I was at the Boone County Republican Women's meeting because I want to be involved. Yeah. I don't want revolution. I don't want civil war. I want this to go through the electoral process and have the peaceful transfer of power. But we've already heard from Democrats that if Trump is elected by the people, they will refuse to certify. That, my friend, is election interference. The exact same thing that they accused us of doing, they're now broadcasting and telling everybody in the world what their plans are.
Yeah. Look, I think most people just keep their mouth shut because they don't want to rock the boat.
That's the 80%.
They're thinking what they're thinking, but they're afraid to rock the boat, and they're doing damage to themselves because, again, we have kids. We're only good, until it affects you personally.
Right.
Like, things, it's tolerable. It's like, they're only pulling one hair out at a time until finally you're running out of hair, so you're not feeling it so badly. And right. This is what I had a woman who wrote me in a comment a few weeks ago about something. She says, there's nothing, and this was about the Maui fires. And she wrote, there's nothing you or I can do. And I said, I don't really write back on comments. And I wrote her back because I happened to see it. And I said, I beg to differ. I said, it's that kind of thinking, that attitude is where we're all going to be, they're going to get us all because we think there's nothing that we can do. There's way more of us.
Well, and the other thing, Peter, is that the way I look at it is this. A lot of people will make the claim. The analogy that I use is they've got a drowning child in a pool or in a lake, whatever. And the people who stand on the shore going, I guess he's going to drown. Nobody's going to save him. That's our nation. That's what they're doing. They're expecting someone else to save them. Our individual rights, our individual liberties are up to us to defend individually. That's why they're called individual rights. And if somebody comes after my individual rights, whether it's one person or a group, it's up to me to defend those. Me to stand. I tell people all the time, I'm out there, I'm working, but I'm doing it for me. I don't have love in my heart for you, Peter. I'm sure you're a nice guy. I'm doing what I'm doing for me. Couldn't care less about your rights. They're my rights, my individual rights. I cannot fight for yours. You have to fight for those. I can fight beside you. I can be your ally. But when I'm fighting for me, my life. No different than in a war, right? A soldier isn't fighting for his buddy. He's fighting for himself to make sure that he doesn't get killed. As Patton said, You know, it's not your duty, boys, to die for your country. It's your duty to make the other son of a bitch die for his. And that's what I believe in. I look at that and use that term a lot because it's not for me to stand up and say, I'm fighting for your rights. What have we seen time and time again when that happens? We've seen our politicians. I'll stand up and fight for your rights. Give me your vote. Give me your money. I'll be your voice. And we saw what really happens when times get tough and get political and they shut their pie holes because it's safer to keep your mouth shut than it is to suffer the slings and arrows of being the guy who raises their hand or rocks the boat. That's why it's imperative that people understand their rights are theirs to defend. Not mine, not a congressman's, not a senator's, not the governor, not the president. It's up to them. And when they stand and say, I'm not putting a mask on, I'm not taking your goddamn vaccine, I'm not paying these fucking taxes, when that starts happening and they start defending themselves individually instead of waiting for somebody else to do it, things will change in this country. Until then, the machine will continue to run as the machine runs. And the machine ain't going to fix itself because there's no incentive. There's no benefit for the machine to right the ship. None.
Yeah. They're benefiting on making everything wrong. I mean, so we get codependent, and it doesn't make it, again, if it doesn't affect them deep, most people are not most. I don't even know what the percentage is, but it just, again, I hope that this reaches a few people at a time. I don't care, to open their minds, even if they disagreed in the beginning, like or not like, but something to make sense. They go, well, he's kind of got a point because that's what I'm doing, but and shake a tree. I'm just sick of it. We're getting down to the wire here.
Well, my son called last night, Peter, and about a different subject, but in conversation, he just brought up, he goes, Dad, I might have to get another job. And I go, what? He goes, I'm making $90,000 a year and I can't make it. And he doesn't. My son he's a scrimper. He's a saver. He is not going out and buying video games and going to movies and concerts and traveling, right? Yeah. He's got 3 daughters. He's got a home. And he goes, all I do is work. He says, I work 12 to 14 hours a day. I come home, I watch some TV, I go to bed, and I get up and do it the next day. And then I find out that my check, by the way, I don't know if everybody knows this, but about 55% of all the money you make goes to taxes and fees. 55%. Sure. So no, he can't make it on 90,000 because it's not 90,000. It's closer to 34 or 36,000. That's what he's really bringing home. And today's prices, Peter, it's not going to change. And if we expect Joe Biden or even Donald Trump to change these things for us and fight for our rights and our freedoms, it will not happen. And it's imperative that the American people realize that on that document that gave us our freedom, that spelled out what our rights are, what does it start with? It doesn't start, we, the Republicans and Democrats and independents. It said, we, the people, and people is capitalized. It's you. It's up to you. And if you're expecting, if you want me to go fight for you, well, there's going to be a price for that. You see what I'm saying? And that's what politicians have done. I'm not a politician. I'm not fighting for you. I win this seat in the county council. I'm fighting for me. My voice will be there. I'll listen to everybody else. Yeah. But I'm going to do what's according to the Constitution. And that's the number one thing that I want to say when I get in there is no. We're not spending that money. Nope. Not going to do it.
Yeah. I don't like the word politics. I don't know where that ever got developed and came up with, but it is a horrible, I think, unnecessary piece of, I don't even know how to put it in play. They serve no purpose. It's just all they're doing is patting themselves and creating it. To me, it's a self-job creation. There's no need. I don't think there's any need for them. It's just a business.
They're the managers. All they're supposed to be is the managers. Right? We, the people, hold the power. They serve at our pleasure.
Yeah, sure.
And if we want to go back in, well, Peter, that's the way it is. If you know our history in this country, you'll see time and time again that we've decided as Americans that we're not going to put up with this shit. Most recently, let's go back just a few years ago. Remember what happened with the Bureau of Land Management at the Bundy Ranch? Do you remember that incident? The government was going to come in and take this farmer's cows. And the ranchers, over 1,000 of them, showed up armed against the armed BLM agents and said, over our dead bodies. Right? In Athens, Tennessee, the Battle of Athens, if you're familiar with that. right? Soldiers came back from World War II, came back to the county that they lived in, and the sheriff was corrupt as all get out. He rigged the election. So what did they do? They went down and broke into the armory and had a shootout with the sheriff. The sheriff was arrested and put in jail, and the election was fixed, or it was redone. We have the power. It's our authority. They serve at our pleasure. They're nothing more than managers. I say this all the time, Peter. Our government is based on we the people, which means that our neighbors are the government. They're not better than us. They're not more special than us. They're not smarter than us. I know a lot of them. They're not as smart as they want you to believe they are.
That's fact.
Right? So if it's just my neighbor, if the government is just my neighbor that is running things for us, right? Roads, bridges, keeping our borders safe and all that kind of stuff. If that's just their job, and I've agreed that, yeah, I'm going to give you some money to make sure that you can do your job. So take a portion of my pay. Would I do that with my neighbor, my actual physical neighbor? Would I allow my neighbor to know how much money I make, how I spend my money, the paths where that money's going on, determining whether I can or cannot travel certain places? No, I wouldn't do that with my neighbor. So if I won't do it with my neighbor that I like, the guy right next door that's got my lawnmower right now, if I won't do it with him, why would I want to do it with somebody in Washington, D.C. or the state capitol? I don't. And that's what Americans are waking up to, is that if we don't realize that our individual rights must be defended by ourselves, that they're ours because they're ours. They cannot be taken. They cannot be stripped. And if they realize that, then they stand. Again, what you said earlier, the reason that people don't is because they're part of that 80%. And when people say, well, I don't believe that, 80% of the people won't stand. 75% of the people in this nation took at least one COVID shot. 75%. I think I've proved my point.
Look, in all fairness, in the beginning, they sold it really well.
Doesn't matter.
I know they sold a good lie, and people thought that they're doing the right thing. But I sat back and I just kept watching. I was a little bit of a slow boomer. I was paranoid a little bit, and then I started figuring it out. I'm saying, this doesn't smell right. Something's kind of weird. You know, Trump had hospital ships on each side. They weren't even used, but yet they kept saying the bodies were piling up.
Trump didn't do that. New York State did that, and California State did that.
The ship?
Yeah. And those were boondoggles. That was money laundering going on there.
Oh, great. Okay.
So Peter, this whole thing, what we've learned, I think what happened during COVID is I think that they wanted to shut us down, slow everything down, and to be able to get things in control so that they could slowly ramp up what they wanted to do next. And it blew up on them. Yeah, we didn't comply. There was a group of us that said, no, we're not going to do that. That 20% that said no, well, in this case, 25% that said, no, we're not wearing your masks. We're not taking your vaccine. And if you come to our doors, you're going to find out what the Constitution is. I gave warnings. I said, listen, if the nation does this, if the government does this, this is how the people will react. And I was called, I was threatening people. Well, no, that's not a threat. That's a warning. Peter, if I tell you I'm coming to your house to kick your ass, that's a threat. But if I tell you, Peter, you come over here, you come to my house, you step foot on my property, I'm going to kick your ass, that's a warning. That's not a threat. So when I say to the government, if you continue putting your boot on my neck, this is what's going to happen. You continue to erode my rights and tell me what kind of stove I can cook on? Are you fucking serious? Yeah, you're going to feel the wrath of the American people. And we've seen it. Again, I want to reiterate, a Supreme Court justice asked why people were trying to make it so hard for the government to censor them. That's all you have to know of where we are in this nation.
I want to not shift gears, but I know this is a heavy topic for you. I'm pretty sure it is. That's why I kind of prepared it. As if you, I don't want to, I need to get you a little bit riled up. So I am again dumbfounded on the people that see January 6th as an insurrection and January 6th as a, it went a little bit. I think it was planned. I think that there was instigators in the whole deal, and I think some people were foolish enough to follow through and kind of join it, but it really wasn't an insurrection. I don't believe it. I want to play a real quick video, and then I want your take on it. Okay. Because this is important to me, because I have people that said I saw the actual footage when it went down.
I was there.
Oh, okay. Well, I was watching it live on TV. when the cops were opening up the gates and letting. But anyway, but yet I have people that I know and love said they saw the same thing, and it was horrible what they did. And they see where they saw that I do not know. But check this out, and then we'll go.
Thank you guys for coming. It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Matt and Ms. Stefanik, for leading on this. You know what I love about this? Watching where President Trump is at in the polls. I love it because it shows the American people don't trust you guys, and they shouldn't. Because you guys are full of it and everybody knows it. There's a few honest journalists in this town, but they're very few and far between. You know how I know it wasn't an insurrection? Because he hasn't been charged with insurrection. And we can all see by the lawfare how he's facing up over 700 years in jail right now, how they've tried to destroy this man, destroy his businesses, that if they felt they had an inkling of a chance of convicting President Trump of jaywalking or insurrection, they would absolutely charge him. You know how else I know it's not an insurrection? Because this is the first insurrection in the history of the world where the people that were a part of it were unarmed. It's pretty hard to do if you walk around and see how many individuals are carrying firearms. All right. Last thing I want to say about how I know it's not an insurrection is because I actually listened to the words of the president. If you're trying to stoke an insurrection, you don't tell the people listening, hey, I want you to go over there peacefully and patriotically. All right? This is not an insurrection. What it is a party that's scared to death of this man because he's America first, and he's shown time and time again he's willing to bust up the swamp, and he continues to beat you like a drum. That's what this is really about. And for all you journalists out there, that are pretty cowardly, some in this room right now, you don't have the balls to write the truth. And even if you did, your publishers wouldn't publish it because you're a part of a propaganda outlet, probably one of the biggest in the history of the world. If you had any courage, I want you to ask some questions about that day, January 6th, that we keep talking about. Why has the pipe bomber not been caught yet? Huh? Why has the pipe bomber not been caught? The one individual that could have committed multiple mass casualties has not been caught yet. Go follow some of Beatty's reporting over at Revolver News. He's got some evidence for you guys. What's going on up here with January 6th is there's a pretty big cover-up actually going on up here in Capitol Hill about some of the involvement of our government, and it's quite unsavory. And I want to acknowledge Rep. Massey's work on this lately and others who have been trying to get to the bottom of it. But here's some other questions for you journalists to ask. Why did it take so long for Ray Epps to be charged? Go watch videos of Ray Epps on that day and how he was stoking the entire thing and how long it took him to be charged. And yet there were so many people that were brought into the D.C. jail, and they're still there to this day. So if you guys want to ask some questions, those are some questions. But the bottom line is we all know President Trump did not commit insurrection, and he's probably going to be the president of the United States once again. And so I'm happy to be a part of this resolution. I'm happy to support the president, and I'm happy to call out all you little cowardly liars in the press. Thank you.
I love it.
I mean, again, and I'm going to let you put your thoughts on this. To this day, daily, people believe he's been charged. Like lock him up. That's the whole thing. Lock him up. They don't realize the difference that he hasn't even been charged. They're just throwing the accusations out there, and people's minds twist into guilty when they can't even charge him because it's not true.
Well, it's like George Stephanopoulos being sued by Trump now for calling Trump a rapist, that he's liable for rape. Well, he wasn't charged with rape.
Yeah.
Right. It's important for people to understand words matter. Yeah. Rape is a criminal act.
Yeah. If
they could get him on rape, they would have gotten him on rape. They didn't. They had E. Jean Carroll come out of the wood pile, no different than Christine Blasey Ford. Right, and do the exact same thing, and this lie was effective. And he got Trump where he's got this huge amount that it's going to go through the appeals court, and she's never going to see a dime. Right. Let me remind you of what happened going into the 2020 election. Do you remember Stormy Daniels?
Oh yeah, she said she's in the news again.
Well, do you remember her attorney, Michael Avenatti?
Yeah, he was crooked as shit.
Where did he go after the election? He went to jail.
He went to jail.
The guy that CNN was touting as a potential presidential nominee, right? A potential presidential candidate in 2020.
Yeah.
They were saying, "Well, you could be the president. You going to run?" Because that was their answer. Stormy Daniels ended up having to pay Trump's bills because it was all fake. Just like Russia, just like the other stories that we've heard since, the rapist and thief story at the border. It started on the very day he announced. The lying started, Peter. There's nothing more we should expect from these people than lies. I worked in the media industry. I know how they are. They try to find an angle, right? That's why I think my content hits. Is because what I do is I do the exact same thing that I was taught by liberals on how to do this. So I utilize it against them.
I don't know how they can live with themselves. Rachel Maddow and all these they get up every day and live with themselves, knowing they're just spewing pure crap, and they're okay with it, and it's just sad. But I don't know that woman that claimed that she was raped or whatever. Why did it take 30 years to come out?
Well, more importantly, let's look at the details of this, right? She swore that she was wearing a dress that she wasn't wearing because it wasn't manufactured yet. Peter, I've never been raped. Thank God. Knock on wood. Okay, so I've never been raped. And I can imagine how traumatic, well, I can't imagine. I can only imagine, right? I can only imagine how traumatic it would be. But I guarantee you, if somebody stuck something foreign into my body that I didn't want in my body, I'm never going to forget the date, ever. I'm never going to forget the date, moment, year. I will never forget it. It will be locked in my memory forever. Something that traumatic. And she couldn't recall exactly what year it happened? Give me a fucking break. We got people believing it and then calling it rape. That's the other thing, Peter. They call it rape. It's not rape. It's in civil court.
Yeah.
There's no criminal charges in rape. Rape is a criminal charge.
But they feed it and the people take it and run with it and it just builds. And before you know it, he's a rapist. And it's like, come on. This is the thing. The bullshit factor is out of control.
Well, that's why my content and what I do, both publicly and behind the scenes, is so dangerous. You and I first talked. I gave you my whole life story, but I'll give you a short synopsis of this area of it. My dad was a minister, and he worked with problem churches. The church pastor died, or the church pastor ran off with the choir leader and took all the money from the church. Those type of instances, that's where he would go in and take that church over, get it back on its feet. They'd find another pastor, and then we would move to another church. That's what we did for years. I went to 14 different schools. 14 different schools. I started school a year early and I graduated a year early. So I removed 2 years of my education because I'm so fucking smart. The reason I tell this story is because when you're traveling all the time and you're always the new kid in school, you get bullied a lot. A lot. You have no resources. I go to a new school, the bully starts to pick on me. There's nobody there in that class that I know that I can rely on. It's on me. Again, my individual rights, my individual freedoms. I have to defend myself. And there's only 3 ways to placate the bully. You know what those are? There's only 3 ways to deal with bullies, not placate. The first way that you deal with a bully is you placate them. You go along with them and you just kind of, okay, man, whatever. And you just hope to stay out of their way. That's one. The second one is that you join the bully, right? You're not just trying to be a part. You actually want to be a part of the bully's group so that when the next person comes in, you're not the victim. And then there's the third option. The third option is you knock that motherfucker out. And you do it immediately. Within the first 2 or 3 days of him bullying you. You don't let it go on for weeks. You do it immediately. And what's happened is that we've seen the American people get bullied by an oppressive government. And it's not just the Biden government, right? Obama did it. The Bushes did it. Reagan did it. There's a great documentary going on right now on Netflix that everyone should watch. It's called The Octopus Murders. And it's about a series of murders over software that the government stole from a manufacturer here in the U.S. The journalists that were killed for it. the activists that were killed for it. And what we find out through the investigation of this documentary, the CIA was involved, the DEA was involved, the FBI was involved. Our government is corrupt from top to bottom. And what should we expect? They have a monopoly on the system. There's no alternative to the government. They're the final word. And if we don't like what they say, we can't go to another shop or another store. We're locked in where we are. And when you look at the way that our government has moved in the last 70 to 80 years, in particular in my lifetime, the last 40 to 50 years, we've seen this huge shift of bigger and bigger government and fewer rights. And people vote these guys in, these women in, and they say, well, what are you going to do? What kind of laws are you going to pass? Stupidest question ever. What laws do we need passed? What today do we need passed? Don't we have all the laws we need on the books?
Got a lot.
We got a lot. I'll give you one. There's an amendment in the Constitution that says don't fuck with this one. On that particular amendment, there are 20,000 laws on the books in this country concerning guns. The one they said don't fuck with, they've got 20,000 laws on the books. And every time there's a mass shooting or there's some terrible event, they all go running. We got to get rid of the guns. We got to get rid of the guns. We need one more law. Okay, I'll go with you. Let's do one more law and let's get it right this time. But which one of these 20,000 can we get rid of that isn't working, that didn't stop what you wanted to stop? And what I understand that politicians don't get, and I'd be a loud voice about it if I'm a politician, right? If the people say we trust what you're doing and saying, is to be brutally honest, not pussyfoot around it. I was at a meeting tonight, and this lady's a conservative. She's in office. She's a state rep. And Peter, she was asked, she was bragging that she was asked in a poll about her position on Roe v. Wade and President Biden. Is he the real president? And she was so proud of how she answered it because there was no way that they could trip her up. And what she said she said, well, President Biden is the president, and we're having an election soon. What about your position on Roe v. Wade? I stand with the decision of the Supreme Court. She never took a position. Not one time did she take a position. That's not someone I want representing me. Sadly, she's my state representative.
Everything is wishy-washy, Tim.
Yep. Not me.
Well, no, I mean everything that's going on in front of us. But I don't want people at the end of this whole thing or during this whole thing. It's like, oh, fucking Peter, he's a Trump lover and this and that. It's like, I'm not a Trump lover, but the man, it's like they're after him. Just they're scared shitless because he's ruining their game.
That's it.
He's ruining their game. Now I know everybody has to answer to somebody. At some point, there's things going on, there's compromise, but who else is going to stick up? And I don't understand if everybody thinks that we're doing so greatly that we're going to be just fine the way we are, because I don't know. I feel like we're sinking really quick. Yep. And this is killing me. And I just say, give the man a chance. I mean, I don't want to do the cliche, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? But the answer is yes.
If you remember, that was a Reagan line, right? He also had an ad that went along with that. It was called Morning in America, where he showcased what was happening, right? The hope that we now had for the nation. If for those that are younger and don't realize, in 1978, 1979, into 1980, some of the worst times in this nation. For you motherfuckers that are out there, sorry, I'm going to get crass here. For you out there that are complaining about a 6% interest rate, go fuck yourself. You have no idea what interest rates are. In 1980, my parents were building a home, and my dad was he was a minister and he worked at a book bindery, right? So this is when we'd settled in Indianapolis and he was no longer going from church to church. I'd already graduated, but I'm sorry, I hadn't graduated yet. I had 2 more years. In the 2 months up to our closing for that house, the interest rate peaked, I think, at 21%. I'm going to say that again for you guys that are complaining about 6%. It was 21%. My parents, it dropped to 18 and then it dropped to 13. And my parents got their house at 13%. Now imagine how much more house they could have gotten if they didn't have a 13% interest on that loan. We've got to put things into perspective of where we are. And when you realize, hey, it's not that bad. The interest rate isn't that bad, but the food prices are. My dad, and this is the reason I say this is to give people perspective. My dad was making $8.75 an hour and raised 3 children and bought a house and had 2 cars. We never went on vacation, and we weren't rich. I wouldn't say we even well off. But we always had food in our stomach during that period. And I would go back to 1980 with what we had then and 21% interest over what we have right now.
The morals were better.
Yeah, the biggest concern was, what was it? Tipper Gore, that she wanted to rein in all the music. That may have been a little bit later on in the 80s, but that's where, disco had just died. The nation was doing great during the Reagan administration. But what we're learning now is that the Reagan administration was just as dirty. I don't know if you remember that, again, this is in the octopus murders. I'd forgotten about it. That Reagan was blamed for sending $40 million to the Iranians to hold the hostages until after the election. That was the claim back in 1980. I'd forgotten about it. And who was on board with Reagan? George Bush. And who was George Bush? Well, he and his daddy are Mr. CIA.
Yeah.
So when you know the whole story, when you know what's going on, you can make better assumptions, and you realize these guys aren't working for me. They're not doing what's best for me. They're doing what's best for them and their buddies. And here, let me give you an example of how I know that for sure. When I told you that I worked for the Republican Party, my company handled the Republican Party in the state of Indiana. So their websites, their mailers, their palm cards, their TV commercials, their radio commercials, any type of messaging that they needed for their campaigns, my company developed. I worked with all the Republicans in the state. I worked with Mitch Daniels. I worked with Mike Pence. I worked with Eric Holcomb. Those are all governors. I worked with all of the state reps, several of the state senators. And then we were doing so well in doing what we were doing for the Republicans in the state of Indiana, we picked up Kentucky. So I've been involved for a long time. And what I've realized is they do not have our best interest at heart. I've been in the meetings where they're talking about a deal they're going to do and how much money is going to be made on this deal. It's disgusting. And the moment that I spoke out in 2020, I was asked to come onto a radio program and fill in for the afternoon show who had both gotten the COVID vaccine and were both sick. I hadn't, and I was able to go do the show. I walk into the studio and the guy says, the producer says, well, what do you have? I said, well, you guys don't have anything ready? He goes, no, this was an emergency last minute. He goes, you just have to wing it. So I opened the mic and for the first 9 minutes went on a rant about how unconstitutional it was for anyone to lock down the nation. Unconstitutional to mandate that you wear something on your face or mandate that you get a vaccine to save someone else's life. Those are all unconstitutional. I understand why they were pushing it, but it's unconstitutional to mandate it. I said that on the air. I called out Eric Holcomb, the governor of the state. I called out Todd Houston, the speaker, who I'd just been at his house a couple of days previous shooting a commercial. So I know these people and I'm calling them out. I get a phone call when we go to break and it's a representative from the speaker's office and says, Cramer, if you don't shut your pie hole, the caucus is going to have to reevaluate our relationship with you. And so I, wise ass asked, as a wise ass asked. So what you're telling me is if I continue informing the constituents of Indiana, the citizens of Indiana, of what their constitutional rights are, and that there is no authority in the Constitution or in law for any of this to be happening, if I do that, you're going to fire me. And she says that's the long and short of it. That contract was $400,000 a year in my pocket. I'm going to say that again. $400,000 is what Tim Cramer made from that relationship. Very lucrative. Before she got off the phone, she goes, well, what's your decision? I said, you'll know shortly. We came out of break. And for those that don't know, if you call into a radio station, all of those calls are recorded. So I looked at the producer. I said, we get it? I go, yeah. He goes, yeah. I said, rack it. And we came out of the commercial and we aired it. And what I said was, they don't care for you any more than they care about the Democrats. They only care about the party. That's all they care about. They don't care about the citizens. They care about the party. Their power comes through the party. They get no power doing what's best for you. They get their power from doing what's best for the people that back them, the people that pay them. That's how they get their power. They don't care what you think. All politicians want are your money. They want your money and they want your vote. They do not want your attention. They don't want you calling them. They don't want you saying, we've got a problem here, we got a problem there. They don't want you doing that. So I made the decision to cut my ties, to burn that bridge because it was the right thing to do. Yes, it cost me a lot of fucking money. Yes, it's been hard the last 4 years. I had a certain lifestyle that I'd become accustomed to. Had to kiss that goodbye. But our founding fathers did the exact same thing. And if you don't think that at this point in our history, we're as close to 1776 as we've ever been in this nation, you're a fool and you're childishly naive.
Correct. I agree 100%. I want to do one more thing because we are racking up time.
It's only time, baby.
I got it. I got it. And I got no, nobody tells me what to do yet either. And then hopefully, like I said, I do have my certain morals as well. Somebody questioned me. They said, if you got paid a certain amount of money, would you conform? And I said, if it made sense, yes. But if it didn't, it's like, I don't care. I've never been rich. I don't, and I've managed okay. I'll be all right. I like my freedom. I really do. Nobody tells me what to do. But I'm reasonable. I'm not crazy. I want to do a 3-question pop quiz.
Okay.
Where I don't ask me how I come up with these things. I just do. But I have 3 questions for you, and I'd like and this is going to be nearly impossible. But I need you to give an answer in about 30 seconds.
Okay, I can do that.
Questions, all right.
Yep.
So here's what's going to happen. I want to make sure I get this right. Here's the first question. How is it that people out there truly believe, despite what they see on a daily basis, that Biden is doing a really great job and that he's mentally and physically on top of his game, despite everything we're seeing, everything on a daily basis, that Stevie Wonder can see what's going on? How is it that there's people buying into this whole thing, thinking that he's really good?
They're in a cult. They claim that we're in a cult and that Trump is a cult leader, and that couldn't be any further from the truth. It was Trump's vaccine, didn't take it. I don't agree with everything that Trump says. I spoke out against things that Trump has done. I'm upset that he hasn't come out and said that he made a mistake with what he did with the COVID response. Having Fauci remain there, having Birx remain there after we knew that they had lied, they're in a cult. They follow the cult leader. Their whole ideology is built around community and belonging. They do not want to be on the outside. They have joined the bully. What I was saying earlier about how you can defeat a bully, well, you either placate them or you join them or you beat them up. They've decided to join them, and they've joined them at their own expense. They know that gas is more expensive. They know that food is more expensive. They know that rents have gone up and mortgages are harder and the interest rates are going through the roof. They don't care. They're in a cult. Their cult leader said it's okay to do. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know. I would just think common sense,
Well, common sense goes out the door when you're in a cult.
Here we go. Question number 2. Hillary Clinton, Biden, and Trump have all been accused of taking classified documents to their personally into their homes. Yet, Trump, who is officially really the only one who had the authorization as a president to do it, is getting railed for this. How is it that the other 2 are they're just off the hook? They're off the hook and don't have to answer for it, and yet they're railing Trump for doing something that he legally had the right to do.
Well, they're corrupt. They're corrupt. It's important for people to understand. We saw all those boxes at Trump's estate down there in Mar-a-Lago. They made sure that we knew about all the boxes and everything that was scattered on the floor. And what they don't tell you is that was all propaganda, right? Those images did not have the documents in it that we're talking about that Trump had. There were 120 documents. All those boxes, there were 120 documents. That's it. 120. Do you know how many documents Biden had in his possession that were classified? 7 million plus. 7 million plus, including video, audio, and schematics and maps. 7 million documents. Peter, they're corrupt. And if we don't stand up and we don't take these people out of power through the electoral process, we're going to end up fighting them in the streets. There is no alternative.
And then there's Hillary.
Well, they're as corrupt as we'll let them be. Think about that. They're as corrupt as we'll let them be.
Last question, and this is a little more, I think, just propaganda. This is such a. I think the people that are in politics that are talking about this don't even know what they're talking about, but it's a big issue amongst regular people, and that is TikTok. What's the real reason behind why they're wanting to eliminate it?
Okay, well, let me say up front, I believe that TikTok should be banned. I do not like the language or the powers that this bill that they're putting forward, what it gives the president. I don't want Trump to have that power. I don't want any human to have that power. It'll be abused and misused. We already know that. So let me say that up front. The real reason I think that TikTok is being banned is because there's a ton of pressure from Meta, X, the other social media giants that we have in this nation that are losing a portion of $10 billion. That's what TikTok has pulled out of the marketing budgets in this country. $10 billion. That's Coca-Cola, that's Budweiser, that's $10 billion in advertising revenue going to China, leaving this nation, going to China. Well, it's not going to China. It's going to ByteDance, which is owned by the Chinese government. So semantics. It's Chinese. It's a Chinese product. The reason that I think that, and that's the reason I think they want it gone. I think that's the real big push. I think that there's some that are scared about the myth of getting your data stolen, or they've got Facebook is doing that. Instagram is doing that. The reason I know that is because I own an advertising agency. We buy that data. We utilize that in marketing. It's a very valuable tool in what we do. So I know that they're doing it as well. But that's what you give up. When you sign on to one of these social media platforms, go read the user's agreement. Do you know why they call it a user's agreement? Because if they used the term for what it really was, people wouldn't agree to it. It's a contract. And it says, in lieu of you using our service for free, we get your data. By the way, if you don't like what we're doing, you have to go to mediation. You can't sue us. There's all these things, these stipulations that are in the fine print of these contracts. They're not user agreements, they're contracts. And you have to understand what you've entered into. Well, the problem is right now is that we've got this entity out of China that has what I would argue would be one of the most powerful algorithms the world has ever seen. It's very effective at what it does. And when I first jumped onto social media, I had not done social media. This is a new thing for me. My company managed tons of accounts. I just didn't see the need to be on there. What I realized about Facebook is that you're only screaming and yelling at your friends and neighbors, people you know. And when I found out what Twitter did, I go, well, that's better. I'm going to go to Twitter because I want to scream at the world. I don't want to just scream at the people I know. And so when TikTok came around, and Twitter I had up until 2016. I'd had it from 2009, I think, until 2016. During the 2016 election, it got taken. That was the first time I had experienced censorship. And since it really wasn't a big deal to me, I just gave it up and said, screw it. But when I left, that was in 2016. I had 150,000 followers on Twitter at that point. So I know how to grow an audience. That's what makes me dangerous. I'm a marketer. I understand how to get people to react. That's why TikTok scared me, is because when I realized what it was and how powerful it was, I said, this could be used to sway a nation. When I learned that there's 150 million Americans on the platform, then I was really concerned because I've seen how they direct content or how they remove content. I can't be on there. In fact, if you go to TikTok and you put my name in, my username, cramersez, CramersEZ, you get no results. You can put Trump's name in there and you'll get all kinds of results. You can put disgusting stuff in there and you'll get results. But if you search my name, you don't get a result at all. CramersEZ. Someone had that programmed out. They took the effort, the time to go remove my name because what I'm saying is too dangerous to be heard. That's not me. touting myself. I know who I am. I know how dangerous what I do is. I know how dangerous it is to the bullies, because that's what I did in school. The first way to pull a bully's feet out from underneath them is ridicule them in front of their friends, in front of their minions, in front of their lackeys. That's how you do it. You make fun of them because they can't stand that. They can't stand ridicule. They'll call you names all day long, and they want to fight with you either online or physically in the streets, but they cannot take being ridiculed. They cannot take being called out, and especially do it when you do it with a smile on your face. And so when I started realizing the power of this platform, I started calling for it to be banned 2 years ago as I'm using it. And people are going, well, you're calling for it to be banned while you're still using it, because it's a platform. If you've read Sun Tzu's Art of War, use your enemy's weapons against them. That's why I keep coming back time and time and time again, because, Peter, the thing that I don't want in this nation is what I fear most. I fear kinetic action. I fear revolution. I fear civil war. I don't want it. I have loved ones. I have friends and neighbors. I don't want to see them harmed or hurt. So I do everything that I can to stop that from happening. Wake people up. Let them know what's really happening in this country. For example, I've got great news. We have solid evidence of cheating in the 2020 election. You know how they keep saying there's no evidence?
Right.
Well, we've got the evidence.
We've always had the evidence.
Well, no. No. This is irrefutable, because they've already said that what we have doesn't exist.
Oh.
That it didn't happen. When this information comes out, and I expect it's going to be an October surprise. I'm not in possession of it. It's not my information. And that's why I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Okay.
But I expect an October surprise with this information. In addition, we worked with James O'Keefe and his team last year, along with the Gateway Pundit, to do a door-to-door knocking deal where we found out through research that let me step back. Let me get this back to the beginning. We received documentation from the FEC of donations made by people in the state of Indiana. Now, this is all over the nation. James O'Keefe did it in several areas around the nation. I did Central Indiana, and another gentleman that I was working with did it in Missouri. And this list shows people aged, the average age was about 72 years old, but people on fixed incomes, living in a house that's maybe worth $200,000, donating to Act Blue, the fundraising arm of the Democrat Party, and the DCCC, the Democrat Campaign Caucus Committee. I think that's right. I can't remember what theirs is, but it's DCCC. That they were saying, or they were. I'm trying to think of the word to it. It's not. I've been talking all day. My words have escaped. I must have used this word up already. I can't think of it. Their donations, their contributions. They're saying that they're getting these huge contributions from these people. I'm really screwing this story up. Anyway, long story short, what it was is that we went and knocked on doors. And I'll give you an example. The documentation from the FEC shows that Betty Smith, right, 80 years old, is giving $20,000 a month to Act Blue. And so we show up at Betty Smith's house, knock on her door, and we find out that her house is somewhere in the ballparks of a $240,000 home. And so we ask her, Betty, have you been giving $20,000 a month to Act Blue or the DCCC? Now, we got all this on film. We filmed them, hidden cameras. I've got a body camera that I can wear anywhere I go. And so what did she say? What did Betty Smith tell us? Well, what she told us is, no, I give some money, but I think I give like $13 a month. So you only give $13 a month. You don't give $20,000. Nope. I don't have $20,000 to give. I give $13 a month. And she shows me her receipt. How is she getting credited for giving $20,000 a month? Now, if it was just Betty, I'd say okay. But we had 100 people on my list. And Peter, here's what's concerning. We got about 80% of that list completed, meaning we'd knock on some doors, nobody would answer, or they just wouldn't talk to us. So about 20% wouldn't talk to us. But that 80% opened their doors and told us, and 80% all said the same exact thing. I didn't spend that much money. I didn't make that donation. We've got a problem in this country. And that kind of work is what really, what I'm excited about, is revealing truth. And the price for that is you get canceled. You know that, right? The price for that is that you can't be on social media. You know that price. And so that's what pushes me on, because I'm not going to let the bully win. I'm not going to placate them. I would rather beat their ass on the playground and ridicule them than take their bullshit, because I'm not going to be bullied. And that's what these people are. They expect us to lay down and roll over and play dead and allow them to do whatever the fuck they want to do. Not on my watch. They're going to have to kill me first. That's what I mean by dedicating your life.
I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Exactly.
Look, last video, last comment, and then we got to go. And then we'll pick this up. I really hope I get you back on this year before the elections.
Well, after the election is going to be even a lot more fun, I think.
Well, all the above. I'll have you on anytime you want to come on, but all the above. I just think that the shenanigans is never going to stop. I can't wait to see what they have left to come up with. But check this out. This is you actually making an apology or in agreement with the Democratic Party, the Democrats. So just check this one.
Democrats don't get the chance to hear me say this very often, but you're right. Right now, this moment, there is absolutely no evidence that shows that Joe Biden ever took a dime from Hunter Biden in any of his business dealings. Zero. There's no paper that says, I gave Dad X amount of dollars, other than Hunter says that Dad makes him give half of his paycheck. That's it. You're right. But the question I have to ask is, what the fuck does this family that doesn't produce shit, they don't make anything, why do they need 20 different companies? And why do they only do business with foreign entities and foreign nations? Why aren't they doing any of that work here in the U.S.? Why can't Hunter get a job here? Because they only have one product to sell, folks. It's influence. It's that simple.
It's that simple.
It's that simple. I've had a very successful company for 30 years. We've done work all over the planet. We've done work with all kinds of groups. We have one bank account. We have one corporate structure. We don't need 20 different companies. We don't need 20 different LLCs. We don't need hidden bank accounts. We've never gotten a SAR. I've done work all over the country. Never gotten a suspicious activity report from a bank ever. Not one time. A buddy of mine owns a bank. His family is in the banking industry, and down in Kentucky. And I asked him when this all happened, I said, what happens if a SAR comes through? He goes, well, we don't keep that client. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, if a SAR comes through, it's bad for the client, but it's even worse for us, because now it opens us up to investigation by the federal government, and we don't want that. So we make sure that there's compliance across the board, because we don't want to be investigated. So they apply the law. The banks that got these suspicious activities reports and continued to allow Hunter Biden and the Biden family to remain banking with them, not normal, not according to the banking industry. Now, if you just took my word for it and said, well, Cramer says he knows a buddy, but Byron Donald said the exact same thing. He was in the banking industry. Cramer said the exact same thing, that these suspicious activities reports should tell everyone what's going on. And I'll ask this question. If you went through my books, we've got QuickBooks that we manage everything through. And when you go in at the end of the day, Peter, I'm sure you're the same way. You have to itemize for clients what you've done. We created a website. This is how much it cost. We bought this. This is how much it cost. You have to itemize all those things. The Bidens don't have any of that. They don't have any product they sell. They don't have a get-rich-quick scheme except for themselves. They don't sell anything. They go after Trump. They go after others, calling them all kinds of names. But the question I have to ask is, okay, Hunter didn't do anything wrong, and Joe didn't do anything wrong. Where'd the money come from? What was the money for? Because I can show you on my invoices exactly what we did to earn that money. And I can tell you all the way down to the cent of every dime I've ever made what we did to get that money. I don't have $10, $15 million in my bank account that I can't account for. They do. And so I think until we get the fourth estate back, which is our media, until we get journalism back, and we have it, it's citizen journalist. It's not the big companies. And let me wrap up by saying this. I worked in that industry. It's disgusting. It's dog eat dog. That's why I have the personality that I have. I rose to the top of the ranks everywhere I went because I didn't take shit from anybody. I did my job well. I'm very good at what I do. I'm not ashamed to say it. It's not ego. It's a fact. That's why I get called on by national agencies around the country to help them solve problems that they can't solve. Because I come in with the exact same kind of energy that I've got right now. I walk into the room, let's solve the problem. And the first thing that we do to solve the problem is get all the bullshit and politics out of the way.
I just feel what's fair is fair. Like I said, they want to go. I don't, Trump, like I said, I'm sure he's got his amount of shit too. But the thing is, I just think that they're so scared of him because all these congressmen, they're all retiring this year. A lot of them, because they're getting ready to, they know that the jig is up. It's
what's interesting to me, Peter, is that we predicted this 2 years ago. So there's a group I work with out of DC that we war gamed what was going to happen in 2024. And it's just clicking off. So what I would tell people, all of your listeners, viewers, to pay attention to, watch the stock market. The Fed has just told us they're not going to give the stock market any more money. Stock market's been rallying because they expected that those rates were going to drop. I didn't see what the numbers were today after the news came out. But keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on these sanctuary cities that are releasing, or not releasing, they're kicking out these illegal aliens out of these facilities that they're staying in. They're going to cut off their money. Yeah. They're going to cut off all the aid that they've been giving them. What's going to happen when we've got 8 to 10 million people in this country that decide, fuck it, I'm not going back home. I'm just going to take it from that home.
Yeah.
And we think it's going to happen sooner than later. Again, these are predictions. They're based on models, and it showcases us where we are. But I want people to pay close attention to what's going on in Haiti. Their government has fallen apart.
Collapsed.
The president is on the run. Gangs are running everything. There is no government. There's no police to call. There's no army to come save you. They're screwed. So if the same thing happens, it can never happen here. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
We'll never have a worldwide pandemic where everybody will lose their job and lose their businesses and lose their rights as we march to socialism. Right? I mean, we never thought that 2020 would happen.
No,
yet here we are.
Tim Cramer, you are a plethora of energy, and you're bringing it to the table as I thought you would. I thank you for taking the time, but we're going to have to pick this up because, again, it's a never-ending story, unfortunately.
Right. Well, I'll wrap it up with this, Peter, is that all you have to do is take a look outside your window. And in that movie Network, where he said, go to your window, open it, and scream, I'm tired as hell and I'm not taking any more, that's not enough. It's not enough. You have to get into the streets. And what I mean by that, I don't mean physically into the streets. I mean, you have to get active. You have to become a part of the solution. Instead of screaming and yelling at the wind, you have to become an active participant in your freedom and liberty. You cannot expect somebody else to go fight for you anymore. You cannot do it. What if that person is taken out? What if the one person that would fight for your freedoms gets taken out first? What are you going to do? It's up to us, we the people. And if we don't take this responsibility seriously, we'll all end up on our knees, serving another master, being slaves to a system that we cannot stand, and asking ourselves, how the fuck did this happen? I'll say this one last thing. In the event that my granddaughters ask me at some point in the future, Grandpa, when the country was under turmoil, what did you do to stop it? I want to have an answer. I don't want to sit there and say, well, I didn't do anything, honey. I thought somebody else would do it for me. I'm doing it myself. That's what we've all got to do, because my individual rights are mine, just as yours are yours.
Correct. So what you're saying is that putting out an angry post on Facebook isn't going to do much.
Doesn't do it. And a lot of people think that that's all I do, right? They see me on social media. They think that's all I do, Peter. I'm involved in all kinds of stuff across the nation. The stuff that you see on TV, the news stories that you hear about certain events with conservatives, where you go, oh my God, that is so awesome. There's a good chance that I was either behind getting it taken care of, finding the information. I work with the Gateway Pundit. I work with the National Legal and Policy Center. We work with the marketing department of the Epoch Times. I'm involved heavily And then I go to the meetings and I show up and I'm on the phone. I think the night that you and I first talked, what was that, a 2 or 3 hour conversation?
It ended up getting pretty
right.
Yeah,
but we got into the thick of it because we're both engaged. And if Americans don't get engaged, their rights are going to be stripped out from underneath them, and they're going to ask what the fuck happened and never know. I know how it goes. We've already played this out. We know what happens next. It's not going to be pretty. And by the way, the way that we can stop this is by getting involved. We don't have to have a civil war. We don't have to have a revolution. No one needs to get hurt, but people need to be held accountable. And for that to happen, you've got to get involved.
This awareness program was brought to you by
Pfizer.
yeah. That's the wrong.
Pfizer made us all aware.
Oh man, they didn't buy us out yet.
Exactly.
Anyway, listen. Thank you for giving me and giving my people the time. I do truly believe that, again, if we just reach a few, it's a few more than what we had a few hours ago. And the gift that keeps on giving, because this show will live on forever. And I really hope that I have you back, that you be kind enough to come back and we'll keep following up, because I swore when I started this show I would not be involved in politics and religion, and we're just in such a bad shape that my soul, I could not. Right. Now I'm not totally as much as you are, but I'm here. And
that's the point, Peter. I keep telling people, they think that fighting on the front lines is the only thing that's available. And if you know anything about war, and that's what we're in a war, you don't have to be on the front line to be effective. You can be the cook behind the line. You can be the medic behind the line. You can be, and when I say that these are metaphors for helping out candidates or causes or people that you believe in, standing up, going to meetings. And again, the number one thing that politicians hate is you in their face. That's why Maxine Waters said, get in their faces. She knows that's the thing they hate most. They don't want us complaining. They want us being complacent and just going along with whatever they lay down. No different than the mean girl or the bully on the playground. And so if we stand up and say no, the first word you learned as a child was no. Before you learned your mom and dad's name, before you learned to say daddy or mommy, you learned to say the word no and shake your head. It's time that you start utilizing that first word. No, I'm not doing that. You do not have the authority. I nullify your power. I don't recognize your authority. The moment that starts happening, that's the same thing as telling the bully on the playground to go fuck off. It works.
It needs to be done. I can't imagine at things getting too much, as fast as things are declining. It's faster to knock down a building than it is to rebuild a building.
Yeah.
And this is bad. This is in 3 years. This is a disaster.
Yep.
So but either way, tell people, and then I got to let you go, how they can find you and where they can find you, should they want to find you, and somewhere.
If you want to get involved, the first place to go is cramersez.com. Cramersez.com is my own personal free speech social media platform. When I was worried about 22, I thought that they were going to take our free speech rights there, and they were really locking down on everybody on social media. I said, well, I'm going to build my own. So it's a free speech platform. It's free to join. Plenty of conservatives there. If you love spreading information and truth, that's the place to go. We don't censor. There's stuff up there that I don't personally like, but it's not mine to take it down. It's their voice. They should be able to say it loudly. We've given people a resource to be able to do that. It's cramersez.com. That's cramersez.com. And then there's cramersez.shop. Cramersez.shop is a swag merch store. The difference between cramersez.com and all the other merch stores that are out there for all the influencers and so on is I don't take a dime of it. 100% of the proceeds, that anything that's sold on there goes to support the families of the J6 detainees, attorney fees or commissary, whatever they need the money for. We just fork it over to them 100%. So go buy a t-shirt, go buy a hat, whatever we got over there, pick something up and help out a J6 defendant. And the last thing I'll say is that if you're looking for my content, search for Cramer Says on X, Instagram, YouTube, and Rumble. YouTube, I don't post a lot on for the apparent reasons. But the other platforms I'm on a daily basis with new content. Since I've been running for office, I've been a little bit slack on putting out as much as I usually do. But everything's there. And if you go to TikTok, just search Cramer Says. There's, I think, somewhere in the ballpark of over 2 million videos of me on there of one form or another. If I didn't do it, somebody else took some content that I did and rebuilt something with it. So there's still a lot there on TikTok.
Damn. Yeah, and you do have a lot of content, and that's why, like I said, that's how I found you. And it took me a long time to get a hold of you. Figure out how to get a hold of you. But
Well,
again,
let me say this, Peter. Let me add this in. If you want to get a hold of me, the best way to do it is through cramersez. If you go to cramersez.com and get your an account, you can message me directly through there. You don't have to go through Twitter and all their rules, or X and all their rules, and TikTok and all their rules. If you join cramersez.com, I'm on there on a regular basis, and you can talk to me directly.
everything happens for a reason. So
Yep.
I'm glad that this reason was here and now. And again, I thank you for your time. Wave goodbye to everybody. I'm going to finish us out. And once again, the infamous right there. Let's get a good look at that face right there. Cramer says right there, do check him out because, again, plethora of information, knowledge, and your heart's in the right place, my friend. And thank you.
Yours as well.
We'll be talking down the street. So thank you. I'll see you in a little bit. Here we go. This man just, I think, made me break the time record on this show. It's a 2-hour show tonight, but that's okay because the moral to the story is get involved. Get involved. Our lives are depending on it. Your children are depending on it. Get involved. That's all I got to say about that. I thank him he's real, the real deal. He's not making that shit up. Nor am I. I want to thank everybody for watching Life of Peter G, the Peter G Show. I want to remind you, next week, I'm going to still have a bitch-a-thon. We didn't even get to talk about the border. It'd be a 3-hour show. That, you know how much it riles me up. Next week, open mic night. Normally at the end of the month, I take the show by myself and just current events, rant, inform. I'm going to have Mike Weiss on with me. Retired airborne paratrooper, retired LA police officer, retired federal agent, and just all-around good guy. And he's going to help me out in talking about this stuff as I will pick up where we left off tonight one more time. But you're not going to want to miss that. Wednesday, March 27th, right here on Life of Peter G, the Peter G Show, every Wednesday, like clockwork, God willing, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. on the East Coast. I don't want you to miss it. I want to thank everybody again. Subscribe. These guys right here are killing me. We got to beat them at their own game. Just keep on joining on. They're killing me, but I'm not going to let them beat me. Get involved. All right? I love you guys, as always. Be kind. You don't have to take a bunch of shit from people, but you don't have to be an ass either. Just handle your business. Remember, we have a generation, if you got kids, it makes a difference. Everybody's got to finally come back to playing nice again. We talked about the 80s real quick. We didn't know how good we had it, I think. Either way, I'll see you next week. As always, I love you guys. Peace out.
Peter G Show, Peter G Show, divorce dad, single dad, divorce dad, single dad, Peter G Show.